If you had to choose between keeping your pride and saving everything you built, what would you do? This man found out the hard way. For 11 months, a man in torn clothes sat outside the glass tower of Mercer and Holt Industries. Security guards dragged him away twice a week. Employees stepped over him like trash. But nobody knew his name was on the building's deed. And when he finally walked through those doors in his rags, the people who laughed the loudest had the most to lose. Welcome everyone to another story. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from today? Florida, Lagos, maybe Trinidad or the United Kingdom? Let us know. Now let me tell you about a man named Samuel Drayton. Samuel was 61 years old. He had deep lines around his eyes, the kind that come from years of squinting into problems other people could not solve. He was tall, thin, with large hands that always seemed to be holding something. A pencil, a cup, the edge of a table. Like he needed to keep them busy or they would shake. He had a habit of rubbing the knuckle of his left thumb when he was thinking, pressing it over and over like a worry stone worn smooth. 34 years ago, Samuel and his business partner Arthur Holt started Mercer and Holt Industries out of a rented garage on Willow Street. Samuel's last name was not Mercer. Mercer was his mother's maiden name. He used it because she had believed in him when no one else did. She had given him $600 from her retirement savings, pressed the bills into his palm and said, "Build something honest, Samuel. That is all I ask." And he did. Mercer and Holt started as a small construction supply company. Samuel handled the designs. Arthur handled the clients. Within 10 years, they had 70 employees. Within 20, they had 300. Within 30, they had a glass tower downtown with their names etched into the stone above the front entrance. Samuel lived in a modest brick house on Ridgewood Drive. Not a mansion, a house. 3 bedrooms, a porch with a wooden swing, a garage full of old blueprints he could never bring himself to throw away. The house smelled like cedar and ground coffee. Every morning at 5, he would sit on that porch swing with a cup of black coffee and watch the sky change color. He said that was the only meeting he never wanted to cancel. He had a wife, Gloria. She passed away 4 years ago from cancer. It was slow, and it was cruel. Samuel sat beside her bed every single day for the last 3 months. He read to her. He held her hand. He told her stories about the garage on Willow Street and the $600 and the first contract they ever won. When she died, Samuel folded her reading glasses into a soft cloth and put them in the drawer of his nightstand. They are still there. He had one son, David. David was 32, sharp-featured, quick-talking, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make you feel like you were already behind. David had an MBA from a prestigious university and had joined Mercer and Holt 5 years ago. Samuel gave him a position in operations. David wanted the corner office. Samuel said he had to earn it. David did not like earning things. David liked having them. Now pay attention to what happens next. Arthur Holt had retired 3 years earlier due to a bad hip and worsening eyesight. He lived in a cottage upstate with his wife Bee and spent his days fishing and calling Samuel once a week to complain about the cold. When Arthur left, he signed over his operational authority to Samuel under a private agreement. Samuel held 60% of the company. Arthur held 40%, but it was non-voting. Everything ran through Samuel, until it didn't. The trouble started quietly, the way trouble always does. David had been talking to the board. There were 7 members, 4 of whom had been appointed in the last 2 years, all people David had recommended. Samuel had not paid attention to that. He should have. One Monday morning, Samuel walked into his office and found a letter on his desk. It was typed on company letterhead. It said that the board had voted to initiate a leadership review based on concerns about the company's strategic direction. It recommended that Samuel step back from daily operations during the review period. It was signed by all 7 board members. Samuel read it twice. Then he set it down, pressed his thumb against his left knuckle, and stared out the window at the city below. His reflection stared back at him, and for the first time in 34 years, the building did not feel like his. He walked down the hall to David's office. The door was open. David was sitting behind the desk with his feet up, talking on the phone, laughing at something.
Samuel stood in the doorway. David saw him, held up one finger, finished his call, and hung up.
"Dad, did you get the letter?"
"I did."
David folded his hands. "It's just a review, standard procedure." "There is nothing standard about this, David. I built this company." David tilted his head. "You built it 30 years ago. The market has changed. The board thinks we need fresh leadership." Samuel looked at his son, really looked at him, and what he saw made his chest ache. He did not see Gloria's warmth in that face. He did not see his mother's faith. He saw hunger, the kind that does not care what it eats. "Did you arrange this?" Samuel asked. David smiled. "I suggested the review. The board agreed. That's how governance works, Dad." Samuel turned and walked out. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against his sides and kept walking. But what Samuel didn't know yet was that David had done far more than suggest a review. Over the next 2 weeks, Samuel tried to fight.
He called board members. 2 of them would not return his calls. 3 of them repeated the same phrase, "We think it's best for the company," like they had rehearsed it. The other 2 said they were sorry, but their hands were tied. David moved fast. He filed a motion with the board to appoint himself as interim CEO during the review. The vote passed 5-2. Samuel was given a 30-day leave of absence. His keycard was deactivated. His parking spot was reassigned. His name was removed from the internal directory. 34 years. Gone in 30 days. Samuel went home. He sat on the porch swing. The coffee went cold in his hands. He sat there until the sun went down and the streetlights came on, and the only sound was the creak of the swing chain. The next morning he called Arthur. Arthur listened without interrupting. When Samuel finished, the old man was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Sammy, what are you going to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." Samuel closed his eyes. "I need to see who is loyal and who is bought." Arthur sighed. "Then you already know how to do that. You just won't like it." And that single moment set off a chain of events nobody could stop. Samuel did something that most people would call crazy. He disappeared. Not from the city. Not from the country. He disappeared from himself. He stopped shaving. He stopped cutting his hair. He pulled out an old pair of work boots from the garage, the ones he wore back in the Willow Street days, cracked and soft and nearly falling apart. He found a pair of faded canvas pants and a flannel shirt with a hole in the elbow. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror and saw a man who could be anyone. A worker, a wanderer, a beggar. That was the point. Samuel began sitting outside the glass tower of Mercer and Holt Industries every morning starting at 6. He sat on the concrete ledge near the side entrance, the one the maintenance staff used. He carried a paper cup. He did not ask for money. He just sat there, watching, listening, waiting. The first week, nobody noticed him. The second week, a security guard named Terrence told him to move along. Samuel shuffled to the other side of the entrance and sat down again. Terrence shrugged and let him be. But this story is far from over. By the third week, Samuel had learned more from that concrete ledge than he had learned in 5 years from inside the building. He heard employees talking on their phones as they walked past. He heard complaints about David. He heard whispered conversations about budget cuts, about canceled bonuses, about a culture of fear that had settled over the company like fog. One morning, a young woman named Elena Martinez stopped in front of him. She was 28, an analyst in the finance department, small with dark hair pulled back in a braid and careful, steady eyes. She was carrying 2 coffees. She held one out to Samuel. "You've been here every day," she said. "You must be cold." Samuel took the cup. "Thank you. Are you okay? Do you need help finding a shelter or something?" Samuel shook his head. "I'm all right. Just resting." Elena looked at him for a moment longer than most people did. Then she sat down next to him on the ledge. Just sat there. Did not ask questions. Did not pull out her phone. Just sat with him for 5 minutes before going inside. She came back the next day, and the day after that. Every morning, Elena brought 2 coffees and sat with Samuel for a few minutes. She told him about her job.
She told him the company was changing and not for the better. She told him about a man named David Drayton who had taken over and was restructuring departments, firing longtime employees and hiring his own people. There was a man who founded this place, Elena said one morning. Samuel Drayton. He built it from nothing. I never met him, but the old employees talk about him like he was family. He knew everyone's name.
He remembered birthdays. He used to walk the floors every Friday and shake hands with the janitors. Can you imagine a CEO doing that? Samuel looked down at his coffee. His throat was tight. Sounds like a good man. He was. David pushed him out. Everyone knows it. Nobody will say it. Samuel rubbed his left knuckle. Why not? Elena sipped her coffee. Because people are scared. David fires anyone who disagrees with him. Last month he let go of a woman who had been here 22 years because she questioned a budget number in a meeting. 22 years. Gone. Just like that. Samuel filed every word away. Now here is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. One morning in the 4th month, Samuel was sitting in his usual spot when a black SUV pulled up to the front entrance. David stepped out, adjusted his tie, and walked toward the building. He passed within 3 feet of his own father. He did not recognize him. He did not even glance at him. But Terrence, the security guard, did something unexpected. He walked over to Samuel that afternoon and sat down next to him. Listen, man, I don't know your story, Terrence said. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, with a kind face and a gap between his front teeth. But you should know something. That guy who runs this place now? He just canceled the employee holiday fund. That money used to go to workers' kids. Christmas gifts, winter coats, school supplies. 300 kids counted on that. He cut it to pay for a renovation of his office. Put in Italian marble floors. Samuel's jaw clenched. Italian marble. I'm telling you, man, this place used to mean something. Mr. Drayton, the real Mr. Drayton, he would never have done that. Terrence patted Samuel on the shoulder and went back inside. That night, Samuel drove upstate to see Arthur. They sat at Arthur's kitchen table. B made soup. Samuel laid out everything he had learned over 4 months of sitting on that ledge. David had restructured the board. He had awarded himself a salary 3 times what Samuel had ever taken. He had signed a lease on new office space for himself at $12,000 a month. He had fired 19 employees with more than 10 years of service. He had replaced them with people he controlled. Arthur stared at the table. He's hollowing it out, Sammy. I know. What's your play? Samuel reached into his coat and pulled out a leather folder. Inside were the original incorporation documents, the original partnership agreement, and a clause that Arthur himself had insisted on 34 years ago. A clause that said any leadership change required the written approval of both founding partners. Arthur had never signed off on David's appointment. Nobody had asked him to. Arthur looked at the papers. Then he looked at Samuel. Then he laughed. A deep, wheezing, beautiful laugh. That boy forgot about the old man upstate, Arthur said. He forgot about both of us, Samuel replied. They shook hands across the table. Arthur signed a notarized statement that night. Samuel's lawyer filed an emergency injunction the next morning. But the biggest secret hadn't come out yet. David did not just mismanage the company. He stole from it. Samuel's lawyer, a woman named Ruth Chen, discovered that David had created a shell company called Drayton Consulting Group. Over the past 11 months, Mercer and Holt had paid Drayton Consulting Group $460,000 for services that were never performed. The invoices were fake. The contracts were fake. David had been funneling company money directly into his own pocket. Ruth prepared the case. Samuel prepared himself. And on a cold Tuesday morning in November, 11 months after he first sat on that concrete ledge, Samuel Drayton walked back into the glass tower of Mercer and Holt Industries. He walked through the front entrance in the same torn clothes he had worn for nearly a year. The same cracked boots. The same flannel shirt with the hole in the elbow. His hair was long, his beard full, and his eyes were steady as stone. The receptionist did not recognize him. She reached for the phone to call security. Sir, you can't be in here.
Samuel kept walking. He walked past the lobby, past the water fountain he had picked out himself 20 years ago, past the framed photograph of the original Willow Street garage that still hung on the wall near the elevators. Nobody had bothered to take it down. He pressed the button for the 14th floor, the boardroom floor. When the elevator doors opened, Terrence was standing there. He looked at Samuel. His eyes went wide. "Wait a minute," Terrence whispered. "Wait a minute." Samuel nodded. "Morning, Terrence." Terrence's mouth fell open. Then he stepped aside without a word. Samuel pushed open the boardroom doors.
Inside were all 7 board members and David. They were mid-meeting. David was standing at the head of the table, pointing at a projection screen. Everyone turned. David squinted at the man in the doorway. For 3 full seconds, he did not recognize his own father. Then his face went white. "Dad?" Samuel walked to the table. Ruth Chen walked in behind him carrying a box of files. Behind Ruth came Arthur Holt himself, leaning on a cane, his old eyes sharp and burning. Samuel placed his hands flat on the boardroom table. The room was dead silent. "11 months ago, you took this company from me," Samuel said. His voice was low, steady, controlled. "You told the board I was outdated. You told them the company needed fresh leadership. You deactivated my keycard and erased my name from the directory." He reached into his coat and pulled out the paper coffee cup Elena had given him that first morning. He set it on the table. "For 11 months I sat outside this building in rags. I watched. I listened. I learned who this company really is under your leadership. And here is what I found." Ruth opened the box. She handed folders to each board member. Financial records, fake invoices, shell company documentation, salary discrepancies, the canceled holiday fund, the Italian marble. David's hands were trembling. You can't just walk in here and—" "I can," Samuel said, "because Arthur Holt never signed off on your appointment. Your entire authority is invalid. Every decision you made for 11 months is legally void." Arthur stepped forward. He set his cane against the table and looked at each board member one by one. "I helped build this company in a garage, with my hands, with my back. I did not build it so some boy in a suit could gut it for marble floors." The room did not move. Nobody breathed. Samuel looked at David. His son. The boy Gloria used to rock to sleep. The boy who used to chase fireflies in the backyard on Ridgewood Drive. The boy who became a man, who stole from his own father. "David," Samuel said quietly, "your mother used to say that the measure of a man is not what he takes, it is what he leaves behind for others. I wanted to leave you this company. Instead, you tried to take it, and in doing so, you left nothing." David opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Dad, You will resign today. You will repay every dollar you funneled through Drayton Consulting Group, and you will walk out of this building the same way you made me walk out, with nothing." David looked around the table. Not one board member would meet his eyes. He picked up his phone, his keys, and walked out of the boardroom without another word. The doors closed behind him. The room was still. Then Terrence's voice came through the open hallway, loud and clear and full. "Welcome back, Mr. Drayton." Samuel smiled. For the first time in 11 months, he smiled. "Now let me tell you what happened after that." Samuel did not fire the board members. He sat with each one individually over the next 2 weeks. 2 of them resigned voluntarily. 3 admitted they had been pressured by David and offered to stay under new terms. 2 said they were ashamed and asked for a chance to make it right. Samuel gave them all a chance. That was who he was. The first thing he did as returning CEO was reinstate the Employee Holiday Fund. He tripled it. 300 kids received winter coats, school supplies, and gifts that December. Terrence personally delivered 30 of them. The second thing he did was find Elena Martinez. He called her into his office. She walked in and froze. She looked at the man behind the desk. Clean-shaven now, hair trimmed, wearing a pressed shirt. But the hands were the same. The eyes were the same. "It's you," she whispered. You're the man from the ledge. Samuel nodded. You brought me coffee every morning for 7 months. You sat with me when no one else would.
You told me the truth about my own company when everyone inside was too afraid to speak. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I'm promoting you to Director of Employee Relations. The position is new. I created it this morning. Your job is to make sure no one in this building ever feels invisible again. Elena sat down in the chair across from his desk and covered her mouth with her hand. She nodded. She could not speak. Samuel reinstated every employee David had fired. 19 people got their jobs back with full back pay. He removed the Italian marble from David's office and replaced it with the original hardwood floors. He hung a new photograph beside the one of the Willow Street garage. It was a picture of a paper coffee cup sitting on a concrete ledge. Underneath it was a small brass plate that read, "Character is what you do when nobody important is watching." On Christmas Eve, Samuel sat on the porch swing at his house on Ridgewood Drive. The air smelled like pine and cold stone.
Arthur was inside with Bea, arguing about whether the turkey needed more salt. Elena had stopped by earlier with a card signed by 60 employees. The porch light was on. The swing creaked softly. Samuel held his coffee in one hand and Gloria's folded reading glasses in the other. He pressed them gently against his chest. The phone rang. He almost did not answer it, but he did. "Dad?" Samuel closed his eyes. "David." A long silence. Then, very quietly, "I'm sorry." Samuel did not respond right away. The swing creaked. The wind moved through the bare trees. "Your mother would have wanted me to say this," Samuel finally said. "The door is not locked, David, but you have to earn the walk back through it." He heard his son crying on the other end of the line. Neither of them hung up. They just sat in the silence together, two broken men on either side of a wound that might take years to heal. But the line stayed open, and sometimes that is enough. Samuel looked up at the sky. One star was brighter than the rest. He did not know why, but he nodded at it, as if someone up there was watching, as if someone up there was proud. And maybe she was. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with a friend. Drop a comment and tell us what part hit you the hardest. We'll see you in the next one.